Yeah, a lot of people don't realize we were on the very first episode of the very first season of Shark Tank. And this was like our first time that we were like, oh, we can afford these drinks, or afford at least, a bottle to split up between us. Adding insult to injury, I got detention and stitches.
Man, what's up, everybody? It's Freddie Stevenson from Trials of Triumph. I just want to say thank you for supporting last week's episode, but we got another great episode coming to you this week. We have Nick Friedman, who is the co-owner of College Hunks. He talks about his journey and how he was able to turn down an offer from Shark Tank, but still go on to generate billions in business. But of course, I want to thank our sponsors first. I want to thank Concord Coffee, Indie Atlantic Films, Garnet and Gold, and the Craig Burt Real Estate Group. But all right, that's enough of me talking. Let's get into this episode. All right, man. Appreciate you coming in today, man.
Yeah, appreciate you. What an incredible story you have. I'm honored to be part of it.
Man, I'm on that. Following your journey and finally having an opportunity to connect with you, it's a blessing. And when I met you, you greeted me with a huge smile, like energy. You can feel it. It's infectious. So I'm excited to sit down and talk with you.
Awesome.
So tell me more about your upbringing. You grew up in the D.C. area, I believe.
Yeah, so I grew up in Washington, D.C. I would say a pretty typical upbringing. My dad was a eye doctor, and my mom was a teacher, and I had an older sister, went to school, and I was always brought up to follow the more traditional career path. You work hard at school, you get good grades, you get into a college, you get a job after college, and you kind of move up that ladder. I was a basketball junkie in high school and middle school, and wasn't good enough to play at a high level. I ended up going to a Division III college and playing there. But the summer before our senior year, we were home for vacation, and my best friend from high school, his mom had a beat up cargo van, and she, looked at us and said, why don't you guys go do something with this van? And she looked us up and down. She goes, you guys could be like college hunks who haul junk. And we laughed about it at first. And then we were like, well, that's, kind of catchy. That's not what people associate with movers or junk haulers. So that's, what we did that summer. And that was really the first light bulb moment for me that there's potential to pursue something beyond just, a degree and a job. And so that kind of lit the initial path for entrepreneurship.
I heard a story, I guess in high school, when you and your friend met. Y'all met in detention or something, like you got suspended or something. I don't know. Tell me the story.
Yeah. So I met Omar, who's my business partner and business and best friend, was partners in crime in high school, and we met in detention. The way we got to detention is because it's kind of funny, because you can appreciate this as a football player. We weren't on the football team, but we had a lot of friends on the football team. So our team wasn't very good, and we went to a game, and it was at an opposing team's field, and our team pulled off like this big upset. We were playing against another school that was like ranked in the area. And I had always seen on ESPN on television where, like, when you pull off the upset, you run onto the field and celebrate. Well, the teachers and coaches heard that we were kind of plotting to run onto the field when the game was over, and they were like, whatever you guys do, don't run on the field. Well, we thought, like, how many times are we going to get this opportunity in our high school career? So we run on the field. It turns out he and I were the only ones running onto the field, and we had to run past the opposing team bench to get to the other side where our friends had just pulled off the upset, and they were not very happy about these away fans coming onto their home turf after they just got their season ruined. And so one of the players actually started, swinging Omar down to the turf. I ran back and came face to face with this dude who was about, 6'5", breathing mud and blood and sweat. And only thing I could think to do was, like in the video games, like figure out where his weak point was. So I tried to kick him in his stomach to get him away from Omar. This is what was going through my mind, is like, I'll be able to, pause him, get Omar up off the turf, and then we can continue on our journey across the field. Well, the grass was wet, so I fell on my back.
Oh, man.
And, didn't go as according to plan. He ended up kicking me in the head. I ended up, adding insult to injury. I got detention and stitches. But what is funny is we tell that story sometimes, and we equate that actually to the journey of entrepreneurship, because, a lot of people, parents, teachers, friends will, encourage you to stay in the straight and narrow, stay in the safe zone, because starting a business is risky.
Yep.
As entrepreneurs, we have this vision of how it's going to turn out, and the old Mike Tyson saying, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. And the reality is, when you start down that path of launching a business or any entrepreneurial endeavor, you might get kicked in the head many times, and it's how you adjust and learn and evolve from that, because you didn't expect or plan for that to happen. And we had this glamorized view of what was going to happen when we ran on the field. But, it turned out much different than that. And, but, that led to me and Omar being, best friends, meeting in detention and forging a long-term friendship as a result of that. And that led to us being business partners. And, here we are 20 years later from that. So kind of a crazy story of how we really struck up our friendship.
And you talked about your love for basketball. Coming up, who was your favorite team? Did you have any players that you modeled your game after? And who would you say, like, skill-wise, that you played? Like, were you a shooter? Or?
So I've been compared in the modern era, my game back then, to the modern era Patrick Beverly. I was an agitator.
Yeah, okay.
Because I didn't have the natural skill, athletic ability, or talent to keep up, so I had to get under the opposing team's skin. And I would catch fire every now and again from three, or I would, really lock down the opposing team's best offensive player. But I would say back then when I was growing up, the closest thing to that kind of inspired me to play that way was actually Charles Barkley. Okay. Now I was a guard, he was a forward, but he played bigger than his size. He was 6'4", led the league in rebounds. I was 6 feet if stretching an extra as best I could, and but I played a lot bigger than that as well. And I would watch Charles Barkley and just get inspired by the fact that as outspoken as he is on television today, he was as outspoken back then with the media and with some of his comments. People like, he was a meme before memes were a thing, right? Before, long before, decades before. And so I always thought that was, I was, I guess, inspired and motivated and encouraged by folks that kind of would step outside the lines a little bit, stretch the comfort zone a little bit. And actually, there's another funny story about my business partner and I. So we ended up on the basketball team together. He sat center right, which is, I say, he sat on the center of the right of the bench and leaned forward. No, center forward. Sat in the center of the bench and leaned forward. That's what I was saying. That was his position. I was on the court, but I remembered seeing Charles Barkley punching a mascot, just as like as a way to get a rise out of the opposing team. And we were playing this school called the Murray Frogs, and they were beating our butt. They had this guy, Tony Dobbins, who ended up playing at Virginia Tech, I think, and they were destroying us. And the opposing team's mascot was this big frog. It was like a foam frog. Okay. So I was taking the ball out of bounds, and I could see this frog, doing like this with his fingers. And so I just put the ball under my arm and I didn't punch him hard, but I kind of gave him a little pop trying to channel my Charles Barkley, and he sold it. He flopped. He threw his arms up, the big foam head. I ended up getting a technical foul. They sat me down. They were like, the ref was like confused at first, like didn't know what to do. Like, wait, this guy just punched a frog? So yeah, that was something else that I think bonded me and Omar as well in high school. Just some of those crazy things that happened in those early days.
Okay, so you get to college. And you talked about the foundation of the company and everything. What was it like the first year when you're actually moving into business and trying to figure things out in college?
Yeah, I mean, so the summer before our senior year of college is when we had the cargo van from Omar's mom's furniture store. And that was like just flyers and mailboxes, a beat up cargo van. We didn't think it was going to become a full-time business thereafter. So we were just kind of figuring it out. And I will say, people will say like follow your passion and things of that nature. Like, we certainly weren't passionate about hauling furniture or moving junk in the middle of the summer, in humid DC. But what I did enjoy was the creative process of, ideating what could this brand look like if we had a logo. Imagine if we had multiple trucks and, the impact that we could make on our team members and our clients. And I think that's what kind of got us excited, gave us a level of passion, but also purpose with the idea of making this a full-time venture. Because I think a lot of college kids will, paint houses, mow lawns, move furniture in the summer. And then when college comes to an end or high school comes to an end, like that's it. They're going to go into the real world and get a quote unquote real job. And, a lot of people kind of expected that's what we were going to do when we graduated. We actually got regular jobs for a very brief period of time. And then we decided we were going to quit and make this a full-time venture. And people were like, you're going to quit your job to do what? Haul junk? And you're going to call it college, Hunks? Are you throwing away your degree to start a junk business full-time? Is that really a good idea? So we used a lot of that doubt as a bit of a motivation for us to try to prove them wrong. And then I always tell the story, we were doing all the work ourselves, driving the trucks, answer the phone, hauling the junk, and we went out and we bought a 1-800 number to try to make ourselves look bigger. We put it on the back of the truck, but it was still routed to our cell phone. So people would call to complain about driving, and I'd be in the driver's seat saying, oh yeah, we'll fire those guys when they get back to the office. Thanks for reporting that to us. We'll tell them to be safer on the road. So, I can say we probably fired ourselves 5 or 6 times that first summer.
And for anybody that's watching, like Florida State fans, understand it's not a Miami hat. It's College Hunks hat. He gave it to me. And I've been telling my wife that I need to wear hats more often. She's been bothering me about it.
It looks great, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate the gift. How did you get the colorway? How did you come up with the colorway?
Yeah, so it's funny. When we started the business, we were still up in D.C., and we were like, what colors are we going to make our business? And we started looking at college teams, NFL teams, NBA teams, and trying to figure out what color schemes went, well together. And being from D.C., the first school we looked at was University of Maryland. So it was like, okay, black and red, that could work. And then, we were thinking, okay, well, the Washington Commanders, maybe, yellow, burgundy, and gold, would that stand out? Or we even thought, maybe UNC, because that's, really a bit of an iconic look.
Yeah.
And we, for some reason, hadn't even contemplated University of Miami, because even though Omar went there, my business partner, he went to college and wrote a business plan there for College Hunks that won an entrepreneurship competition. So that even gave us the confidence to do it.
Okay.
But then we were in Omar's mom's furniture store, and there was a designer there. And Omar asked the designer, he said, what colors really go well and contrast and stand out? And he was like, well, actually, orange and green are 2 colors that really pop. And when he said that, it was like another light bulb moment for us, because, okay, there was some affiliation with the University of Miami. But then you think about the U, it's a small school as an institution-wise, on the grand scheme of things, but it's a pretty infamous and well-known, well-recognized brand. And we were thinking about, we want to build a brand, so we want to stand out in a crowded landscape. And so now we tell people the orange is our bright, playful culture and brand. The green is our environmentally friendly hauling practices, because not everybody likes the U. I recognize that. We got to be diplomatic with our, what the colors represent. Yeah. But that was it. It was trying to stand out in a crowded landscape. And there was a book that we read right around that time called The Purple Cow by Seth Godin. And he says, if you're driving down a country road and you see a bunch of, brown cows, you're just going to keep driving because you've seen it before. But if there's a purple cow standing there, you're going to pull over, talk about it, put it on social media, tell your friends and neighbors about it. And when we read that, we were like, okay, well, the name is not what people associate with moving and hauling. That's different. And the colors, it's bright orange and green. It stands out. People are going to see these trucks driving around town. And we only had one truck when we got our first wrap. And people would be like, oh, I see your trucks everywhere. So we're like, okay, we're onto something here. And then from there, we had to figure out how do we make the service and the experience for the team members and the customers also unique. And that was kind of the next challenge.
All right. And earlier you mentioned facing all those doubts, people telling you that it wouldn't work. For you, what was the moment for you and your business partner when you're going through everything, you're like, hold on, this may have a chance to be successful. We should leave our jobs right now.
Yeah. 2 things stand out in my mind, actually. The first is probably about 2 months into the business. I still had my day job out of college. And because my dad was like very conservative in terms of like risk tolerance, he was like, hey, don't quit your day job. The old saying, see how this business shakes out, work on it on the nights and weekends. And he came home from work one day, and it was late at night, and I was crunching through some spreadsheets and, calling people back that missed calls. And he was like, hey, Nick, how'd your day go? I said, Dad, I was up bright and early at 6 a.m. to empty out the truck before my full-time job. I came home from, but I was answering calls for College Hunks the whole day, dipping into the janitor closet to pick up the phone. I got home. I've been, putting stuff into the computer, and it's, 10 o'clock at night, and I'm not tired at all. And he was like, oh, man. He's like, it might be time for you to go full bore, all into this. And so he saw the energy that I had, the enthusiasm I had for it. And so that was like core memory number 1 for me. And then core memory number 2 was also probably about 2-3 months into it. We didn't have a lot of overhead when we started. We were still living at our parents' house. We were our own employees. We were driving the trucks, doing the work, answering the phones, like I said. And we took our first day off and drove up, with some friends to New York to visit some buddies that lived in the city, in New York City. And I remember, before we started the business, we were broke college kids, first year out of college, didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. Yeah. And that night, we went out to I think it was like a bar or club in New York, and we bought our first bottle. And it was like, wow, we can actually pay for this with the money that we made these past 2 months. And man, this business is going to work. It has to work, you know? So that was something that just popped into my head when you asked that question. I was like, that was, you know, obviously kind of a shallow, superficial example, but you know, back then that was, you know,
college kid.
College kid. We had, you know, we had always, you know, waited in line to get in, always, you know, drank before we went to the bar because we didn't want to pay for drinks. And this was like our first time that we were like, oh, we can afford these drinks, or afford at least, you know, a bottle to split up between us.
I want to take the time out to say thank you to our sponsor, Garnet and Gold, the premier FSU store. If you're looking for anything from hats, shirts, shoes, or even gear for your child, this is the premier store to get your gear. Florida State fans, lock in because it's going to be a great ride this season. But before we get rolling, make sure to get your gear from gardenandgold.com. Hey, was there any moments, like even though you had success early on, were there any moments where you doubted yourselves and wondered if it would work?
Yeah.
Considered giving up?
Yeah, so I'll say when we first started, this was like 2005, 2006, it was kind of the peak of the housing boom. And when we started franchising, we decided we were going to grow our business by franchising. We had this lofty, ambitious goal of having, you know, our brand in cities all across the country, which we do today, but it certainly took, you know, I call it a 20-year overnight success. So we moved down to Tampa to start franchising. And then, of course, the housing market crashes. And so if you were to pick a time to franchise a home service business, moving and junk removal, 2007, 2008, 2009 probably wasn't the best time to try to pick because, you know, there was a mortgage crisis. It was the housing crash. It was foreclosures. People weren't paying for services. People were trying to figure out how to not lose their homes. And it was tough. It felt like we were dragging a big old anchor through the sand. We questioned whether we, you know, made the right decision to move to Florida, whether we made the right decision to franchise the business, if this business was even going to work. You know, in hindsight, I think that made us much more resilient, much more gritty, much more savvy as business owners and entrepreneurs, because it forced us to work through the challenging headwinds. You know, I think when things are easy in the market, it's not easy to win, but it's a lot easier to win when things are kind of, you know, the winds are in your back. But when the winds are in your face, you got to figure out how you're going to navigate those challenges. And that's what we ultimately were able to do. And that, I think, prepared us for, you know, future setbacks like COVID, or, you know, even the housing market today is not the easiest, or even as we speak, you know, the stock market's going crazy with these, you know, tariffs. And so, you know, I think having a willingness to just say like, okay, we can't control the conditions of the weather. You know, it's like in sports, if it's snowing in a football game, that snow affects everybody on the field, not just our team. And so we got to recognize it's affecting everybody in our industry, everybody in business. That doesn't make it any easier to put it in the end zone, but maybe we got to run the ball instead of throwing, you know, long passes for a short period of time.
How did you feel early on in the process when you guys won your first entrepreneurship award? Was that kind of like validation that you were in the right place, you were doing the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've gotten a lot of recognition over the years, which is nice. I mean, in the early days, it's probably more of an ego stroke than anything, if I'm being honest. It kind of like makes you feel like you're important or like you're doing something, you know, worthwhile. But at the same time, it does help give you a level of validation and satisfaction, like the work you're putting in is starting to be recognized by somebody beyond your mom and dad, or you know, your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. So I think the early recognition from the media and then some of the awards and recognitions that we got for entrepreneurship, it did help validate that we were doing something unique. We didn't reinvent something like, you know, we didn't invent something like Facebook or Google, but we took a traditional business, moving trucks and labor, and put a really shiny wrapper on it with the name and the color scheme, and then ultimately a very intentional focus on the service and the culture. And I think being recognized for that was validating and satisfying. Now I always joke, like if we get awards and something, you know, I say sort of tongue in cheek, I'm like, you know, this and $5 will get us a cup of coffee, you know, like, but it's cool. And now we always try to, you know, share that recognition with the team, because at this point it's like we didn't do any of this on our own. The team got us here.
Does Omar, because Omar's mom helped you guys get started, does she ever like remind you guys?
Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, we actually lost his mom to.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. We lost his mom to cancer about 2 years ago, so we've been honoring her every year. We do a Move the World Award.
Okay.
For Lynn Skyneer, in recognition of like she lit the spark that led to this whole movement, this whole organization that's impacted so many lives. But yes, she would let us know and remind us many times that she was Mama Hunk, that she was the one that put us on the map for sure. And so we try to recognize her in every chance we get and pay homage to her and let her legacy and her impact live on. Because if it wasn't for her, not just the name and the cargo van, but kind of the confidence and encouragement to get up off the couch playing video games and get out into the community and do something worthwhile. And that was what we needed.
That's a blessing. Yeah, sorry to hear that, but just being able, one thing when you look at it, our day is gonna come at some point, but knowing that you made an impact while you were here, just for her to know that she left an impact on her son and other lives, and now that's going to be impacting lives for generation after generation. That's legacy.
Yeah, it's crazy. We think about that one of our purposes as a company, we say, is move the world. And we say, it's kind of double meaning. We want to move people's lives, make a positive impact in people's lives. Well, what does that really mean? It means, every single day when we get up and have an opportunity to make a positive impact, it could be something small, just making somebody's day easier when they're going through the stress of moving. It could be something small as just, making somebody's, relief, being able to park their car in the garage again by hauling their junk away. Or it could be empowering our team members with an opportunity to learn and grow and become better, or our franchise owners to have a lucrative financial opportunity to create their own level of wealth and income. And, there's a saying we relate to Move the World, just as, one match can light a candle that can light a whole bunch of other candles, it's like one heart can ignite another heart that can light up a whole nother, unlimited number of hearts. And that's what we say Move the World is about. It's not about one massive thing. It's about the little things that can lead to positive impact over time, compounding. And so, Omar's mom was the match that lit that first spark, or that spark that lit that first candle that's now led to, 200 franchises, that's led to 3,000 hunks. It's led to, millions and millions of dollars of revenue that impact people's incomes and livelihoods. And of course, the, millions of lives that we've impacted through moving their furniture or hauling their junk away. So it's pretty incredible what, one little thing can do that can lead to something big over time.
Without a doubt. I was talking with my producer behind the scenes, and I did not know. I knew you guys were on Shark Tank, but I didn't know that you guys were on the pilot episode.
Yes. So a lot of people don't realize we were on the very first episode of the very first season of Shark Tank. And we had responded, we had just started franchising our business, and there was an ad in Entrepreneur Magazine saying, looking for businesses for a TV show to pitch. And we were like, okay, well, what is this? Well, we're trying to get our name out there. Maybe this could be an opportunity. And we actually pitched it. We were going to call it a sister business. We were going to call it College Foxes Packing Boxes,
okay.
which sounded good at the time when we thought about it, drinking some beers, but it wasn't a great actual business idea. But that's what we actually went on the show to pitch. And the Sharks, we didn't know they were going to become TV celebrities. At the time, we thought they were just, these business guys on a pilot TV show. And Robert Herjavec made us an offer, but he wanted equity in our College Hunks business. We ended up turning it down. And it was a great experience. I mean, even I was, 2009. So 16 years ago, and it still reruns from time to time on CNBC and streaming stuff. So people would tell us that they've seen us on there, and so it's it was a really cool experience, humbling to a degree as well.
What's it like on the set, just walking in? Is it fast paced, or like what's the?
Well, I would say it felt like we were in front of them for an hour. In reality, It was probably 30 minutes, but they chop it down to like a 5 to 7 minute segment for television. And it's intimidating. I mean, I came out of there feeling like I had just run a marathon. I had to, put my hands on my knees and take a breath, because there's lights and cameras swirling all around you. And these guys were, sitting up there, and they got the lights beaming down on them. And I didn't realize it at the time, but, Mr. Wonderful, he's the, kind of the bad guy of the bunch. He likes to really dig into the guys, the entrepreneurs who are pitching. And so he was really, he was really kind of poisoning the room a little bit. And I was like, who is this guy? He's a jerk. So it came out wrong. But when he said he was out, like I said, well, that means you get to stop talking, right? And it sounded like really, like TV obnoxious. But what I meant was like, okay, stop poisoning the room, because as far, based on the rules, like if you're out, then you're not be able to like, say how bad our business idea is. So, but yeah, it was intimidating. It was nerve-wracking, exhausting, all of those things. And we had never pitched for raising capital before, because we had kind of bootstrapped the business.
Have you ever thought, like looking back at everything, now that the business is highly successful, is there anything that you would change if you were to go on the show today?
I always struggle with the hindsight changes. I try to limit my regrets and my anxiety, my regrets about the past and my anxiety about the future. I try to, it's easier said than done, by the way. But when I look back, I don't think there's much that I would change about the show experience. Obviously you could go back and say in hindsight, if we had taken a deal, maybe they could have helped our brand flourish more, because, again, they've got a platform and these guys are now media celebrities, not just business guys. But I think the deal that Robert offered us, he would have gotten 100 times his money on that, on that offer. So we would have been giving up a big chunk of change by doing that. So I'm pretty happy where we are. So it's kind of hard to say I would go back and change something there.
You also had the opportunity to be on Undercover Boss. I've seen the show. It's, on YouTube. I haven't actually sat down and watched it, but I always see funny clips like with a guy sneaking in and, shocking some of the employees later on. What was that process like?
Yeah. So Undercover Boss. So two things about Undercover Boss. One, we actually applied for that show, I think 7 or 8 times, and got rejected 7 or 8 times before they actually asked us to come on the show and be on it. So I think that's a testament to perseverance and not taking no for an answer if there's something you really want to do. But I knew that our brand was a perfect fit for that program, because having Omar and I being so disconnected from where we started, our roots on the truck, answering the phone, doing the work, to now being in the executive offices, I really wanted that opportunity to go undercover and experience what the front lines is like today. So I was very grateful that they gave us that opportunity. We flew to all these different cities in the country, places I'd never been, Boise, Idaho. We were into St. Louis, went to Virginia, and we got to go undercover in disguise and, kind of see what's really going on out on the front lines. Now, not all of it's great, that you want to see or find out about it. But I think as business owners, the bigger the business gets, sometimes we put our head above the clouds. We forget to look down, at the trees, or even go walk amongst the trees to see, if there's things that need to be changed, or how's the culture? Is the culture what we really, promote it to be, or is something different? And so that was a really cool full circle experience to go from Shark Tank to Undercover Boss, over the span of 10 years. For one side of the coin, we were out with hat in hand asking for money, to the other side where we were actually writing checks as gifts for the employees who we met on the Undercover Boss. That was kind of a full circle arc of a journey. I got very emotional in the process. I mean, I cry pretty easily. I'm just an emotional dude. But
you should watch the doc then, man.
But I'm afraid to. I have to bring my tissue boxes with me.
How that process when you're undercover and you, like you say, you see things that you aren't happy about, is it tougher for you to come down on certain things when like you're on TV?
Yeah, it is. I feel like there's always when we're doing reality TV like Shark Tank or Undercover Boss, or even right now talking to you, like there's always like a voice in the back of my mind, which shouldn't be running, but it's running, being like, okay, what, how is this going to be perceived, or how are people going to, take this? And so an Undercover Boss, great example, is like, you can't really just completely forget that the cameras are there, or that all of our franchisees and all of our employees and all of our customers and prospective customers are going to see this. So like, okay, keep your cool. Don't lose your mind. Don't lose your cool. Don't start cussing. Don't, start throwing things. Like be mindful, which I probably wouldn't do those things even if, the camera wasn't rolling. But but just being like second guessing the words that are coming out of my mouth, my word choices, like those are things, and you can't really do that. You got to just let it flow. And so it's that extra kind of angst, I would say, that it puts on me of knowing that, this is going to be viewed or reviewed or evaluated as to how we're handling the situation. Thankfully, none of the situations or circumstances were ones that couldn't be overcome. So I viewed them, and I tried to really take an approach of this is going to be a point of productivity. Like we're here to learn. We're here to get better. We're not here to judge or condemn or criticize, because if we do that, then we're not going to fix anything. And so that was kind of our mindset going into it. And I think that's got to be, from a leadership standpoint, the mindset in general. When you identify things that are broken, you can't just bang the table upset about it. You got to take a collaborative approach. It's like, okay, how can we fix this?
You mentioned that you have over 200 franchises now. Early on in the process between you and Omar, when did you guys decide that you were having success and it was time to take that step and start franchising the company?
We probably got into franchising a little prematurely, if I'm being honest. Okay. I think we had a glamorized, almost naive view of what franchising was and didn't realize what it really is. Franchising is a great expansion strategy for a business model if you've got the tools and the systems fully baked, and you've got the resources to commit to investing in the franchise infrastructure. I think we, read a book that talked about franchising, saw McDonald's, and was like, okay, we can franchise. We'll be the next, the next Chick-fil-A or McDonald's of moving and junk removal. And it was a glamorized view that we had in our mind. And so I would say we were building the plane in flight when it came to franchising. A lot of times people will come to me and say, hey, Nick, you've been in franchising, you're an expert. I want you to help me franchise my business. And I'll spend the first 5-10 minutes asking them questions about their business to see if they really even want to or need to or should franchise their business, or are ready to, or if they're better off opening up additional corporate locations themselves. So I think the 3 reasons somebody will franchise their business is they want to expand the brand quickly, and they don't have the capital or the human management staff to do it themselves. Okay. And that's why we pursue that path. But it's a long march, because until you have 50 or 100 franchisees, the royalty stream isn't sufficient. So we were reliant on the moving and hauling operations that we still owned to help fund the franchise model. Okay.
Tell me a little bit more about your domestic violence move program.
Yeah, so we consider ourselves a purpose-driven, socially conscious organization. One thing we launched several years ago was 2 donated meals to U.S. Hunger for every completed job. We've recently surpassed 5 million meals donated. And then during COVID, we saw all the headlines about domestic violence and people being stuck in their living situation with their abuser and not being able to get out because of the quarantines and because of just lack of resources to hire a company that could move their stuff, move their belongings. And so we had seen some other moving companies locally do some free moves for survivors of domestic violence. And we said, we could do this on a national platform with all of our locations. And so during COVID, we started offering the free moves for survivors of domestic violence. It was unfortunately very popular, meaning there was a lot of people in those circumstances, and we were able to partner up with some of the safe houses and counselors, and obviously in most cases we had to have law enforcement there, because we didn't our guys aren't professionally trained to walk into an abusive situation and diffuse it while moving the furniture out. We don't want to put them in harm's way. So it was quite an experience, and we still do that and promote it heavily during October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
We would like to thank Craig Burt Real Estate Group for sponsoring this episode of Trials of Triumph. Whether you're a first-time home buyer searching for your dream home, a seller aiming to maximize your home's equity, or an investor seeking a prime opportunity, partnering with a dedicated real estate professional can make all the difference. Your real estate goals are their top priority. The Craig Burt Real Estate Group is committed to providing unmatched customer service, and they are genuinely driven to help you achieve your property goals. As your go-to resource for all your real estate needs, they offer a proven marketing plan for sellers. ensuring that your property is widely promoted across major real estate platforms and paired with exceptional negotiation skills. For buyers, they diligently analyze the local markets and trends to help you find the perfect home at the right price. If you're looking for a positive and helpful partner ready to provide exceptional service, make sure to reach out to the Craig Burt Real Estate Group. Right now, I promise you, they will not disappoint. Of course, we mentioned that you're from DC, but I'm trying to process in my mind. I know Omar went to Miami, but how did you guys end up moving to Florida, moving the company to Florida?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we grew up in DC, went to colleges in different states. He was in Miami. I was a small school called Pomona College in California. We would hang out during summer vacations back in DC, launched the business in DC. And when we started franchising, we wanted a call center that would book the appointments for all the franchisees across the country. And the DC area was high cost of labor, high cost of office space. I was kind of burnt out living there, having grown up there and moved back there after college. I wanted somewhere new, somewhere fresh and exciting. We did some research and we found Tampa, and Tampa actually had the Pods franchise headquartered here, the portable storage containers. And they had their call center down in Pinellas. And so I started calling the call centers, asking them how they liked living down there. And then I would look on Craigslist and see their real estate. I'm like, oh, I could have a house like that compared to what I'm paying for my one bedroom here in DC. And then we came down, we were single at the time. And I'm like, oh, the girls look like this down here. And then we met our wives, 6 months later down here. And then, the weather year round, it was all those things. Like, I think all the reasons that people move to Florida, especially coming out of COVID, cost of living, quality of life, weather, just accessibility, that appealed to us early on as entrepreneurs. And I felt it I found it to be a very welcoming business community as well. Like DC, it seemed like people were, always kind of a little more pushing each other out of the way and focus obviously on politics and law and other things like that. Florida just felt like a very entrepreneurial state. Tampa, very up and coming community, and we liked that. We wanted to be a part of that.
Okay, you survived. Your company survived the housing crash, and you survived COVID. But what steps are you taking now as a business, as far as your business model? Because every business wants to be recession proof. Like, what steps are you taking to ensure you're successful no matter what happens in the world?
Yeah. I say we got to be appreciative of our heritage, but we got to embrace change and innovations. So it's kind of this duality, I think, because when things are challenging, we can't just be rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, we got to be moving around that iceberg.
Yeah.
And so I challenge our team very often. And it's like, guys, 75% of people right now with a mortgage have a mortgage that's below 4%. They're not moving anytime soon. So that other 25%, that's our target market. But also, what else should we and can we be doing with our movers? Long distance, corporate moves, high-end residential, designer installs and removals. And so there's a lot of things I think that we've maybe neglected or overlooked because we were so focused on our niche. But, when things are tough, you have to expand that niche a little bit. That's why we added moving. When we first started, we were strictly doing junk removal. And then coming out of 08, 09, we were like, okay, it's trucks and labor. That's what we offer. How, let's do local moving. And now we're expanding that into long distance moving. And so I think there's a tendency as entrepreneurs, we want to chase every shiny idea that comes to our mind. The problem is you become a mile wide and an inch deep and you don't go impactful on anything. So there is something to be said about compounding focus and effort in one thing. But there's also the ability to expand beyond that if and when it makes sense. And that's, I would say, when things are challenging, that's important to be able to do.
You started, of course, when you were single, a young single college kid. Now you're a father, you're married. How has your approach changed now that you're a family man?
I would say my risk tolerance has gone down. I'm not running onto the football field and getting kicked in the head, although Omar and I did Red Bull fluke tag where we jumped off the 25-foot platform into the Tampa Convention Center water just this past October. But I would say, look, when you're younger, you have very few responsibilities or much less responsibilities. And the older you get, the more responsibilities start to, I would say, limit some of your ability to take, risk. You can still take calculated risk, but it limits some of your ability to be as bold as you were, when you were younger. because it's harder to recover from those setbacks when they happen. And so that's why, a lot of times people will start businesses early on at an early age because, even though there's no safety net, they can, they have more time on their side to bounce back. They have less things that they're going to fall apart if things don't go as according to plan. So now with a family and kids, it's I think my obligation to protect what we've built while still continuing to steward and maximize potential. Actually, I'll never forget, my dad gave me a piece of advice recently. He said, Nick, he looked me dead in my eye. He said, Nick, you got a great business, you got a great family, and a great life. Don't F it up. so now, that rings in my head pretty regularly. I gotta keep that in mind, much more than I did when I was younger.
I hear a lot of people in business talk about culture, and to be honest, they don't really live it. Like, they talk about culture and then they treat their employees like trash. But with you, you see it, like, just from some of the people that have talked to me about you. They speak very highly of you. Why is it so big to you? You see these people, they get high levels of success, and then for some reason they feel like they're above people. Why are the people so important to you?
Well, I think, people build businesses. I didn't build the business. People build the business, and it's getting the right people. And I use so many sports analogies in our business. You got to have the right winning players on the field and in the locker room. You can't have guys that are, I'm not gonna say anybody's names. You might be friends with them, but you can't have guys that are really great performers, but then just morale and culture killers in the locker room. But at the same time, you can't have just really nice guys in the locker room that can't perform on the field. And so I think you got to have the balance of both. And I like seeing the collective flow of a team of individuals and the organization as a whole reaching new levels of potential, new levels of success. That's something that's motivation and meaningful to me from a purpose standpoint. But I will say, in the early days, when we started really focusing on culture, we made a critical mistake. We read all these books about culture, and we created our core values and these warm and fuzzies. But then what happened was, the minute we started trying to hold people accountable to performance, they were actually got defensive. They were like, well, wait a minute, this isn't, what our culture talks about. And I was like, wait, where did we mess up? And Omar, the quote I love from him, he goes, we had too much Sesame Street, not enough Wall Street. And he said, you got to have the right balance of both. You can't have too much Wall Street, otherwise you're going to have people that are stabbing each other in the back. Yeah. You can't have too much Sesame Street, otherwise you created a daycare center where people just are cupcaking and clapping. You got to have something right down the middle where it's a balance of performance-based toughness. We say cold on numbers, but warm on the people. If somebody's not hitting their numbers, let's be compassionate and figure out how we can help them hit the numbers, or we're doing a disservice keeping them in the organization because they're better off taking their talents where they can be more impactful somewhere else, ideally. So I think that's the mindset that we have. And I'm big on, maximizing my own potential. That's something that I feel passionate about, and then helping others achieve theirs. And so I think that's, that's keyed in, and it's become kind of ingrained in our DNA, but it doesn't happen overnight. Like you said, you hear people talk about culture, our core values we created, and then we talk about them literally every single day in our daily huddles. We give awards for them at our annual franchise convention and our monthly all staffs. We tell core value stories, and so that stuff, really matters.
You recently acted and you helped produce the film about Jeff Bezos. Kind of talk about that process.
Yeah, so, I always joke, some people climb mountains or run marathons as like a side, passion project, activity. Those don't appeal to me as much. So I've kind of, having done some of the unscripted reality TV, I wanted to try my hand in some of the scripted movie and entertainment side of business. And so I linked up with a guy that he's actually one of the owners of the Tampa Yankees minor league baseball team, but he's also does movie production. And he told me about this script he had for a Jeff Bezos biopic, which would be the first movie ever made about Jeff Bezos. And I read the script, and I could relate to the entrepreneurial story. Of course, several zeros missing from our balance sheet compared to Amazon's today, but I could relate to the grittiness and just the unwavering belief in what he was creating and some of those early hires that he had to make. So I became a producer for the movie, and I actually acted in it as well as I played the role of Shell Caffin, who was the very first employee that Jeff Bezos hired to come work in the garage for him. Really cool experience seeing how the movie process gets made. It was a lower budget process, so certainly wasn't the glamorized, lights and red carpet like you might imagine or envision in Hollywood. But it was a really fun experience. It's on the streaming platforms. I think it tells a great story about a startup life, with one of the most successful businesses of our modern era.
What platforms can we find it on?
It's on Amazon, of course. It's on Apple TV.
Okay.
I would say those are the two main ones.
Okay. Yeah, I know I saw it on Amazon and Tubi as well,
Yeah.
Apple TV. But, is it something that you would want to keep doing, like acting, producing?
I would say so.
Okay.
I would say I would be open to. We're actually producing a documentary right now about our involvement during the hurricanes. It's called Hunks vs. the Hurricanes, and it's the two back-to-back Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton that hit Tampa and really the whole East Coast, and how our business as a consumer brand got pulled in to help with the disaster recovery. So that's a fun experience. I don't know if I would make it my primary gig. I call it a side quest, doing the movie stuff, but I enjoy it. I think it's fun. It's easier now than it ever was to be involved in production. I think that's a lot of fun that it's opened so many doors for people.
I'm not sure if you can talk about this, but I wanted to ask. We cut it if you can't talk about it, of course. I was wondering if you wanted to talk about the current financial market and how it impacts, business.
Yeah, no, we can talk about it. I think I actually was an econ major in college, but I don't remember enough about. I must have missed the tariff portion of the class. I will tell you that our business is somewhat insulated in the fact that we're not a product company. We're a service business, and our service is our product is our people. But there's going to be, if there's macro dynamics that impact our economy as a whole, it's going to trickle down to our industry as well. Of course, some of the trucks that we purchase have parts made overseas and or are manufactured overseas. Some of the ones we purchase are manufactured here in the States, so that will cause us to take a look at if we need to change some of our buying practices. But I think right now what's crazy is just the level of uncertainty and volatility. It gives people heartburn. It keeps people up at night because you can't predict, like, am I going to make this investment for something that's I'm hoping to manifest a year from now or 2 years from now. But if I don't know what things are going to look like a week from now or 2 weeks from now, then I'm in more of a holding pattern. And I think that's probably going to be the at least the biggest short-term hit, is people just sort of trying to wait it out and figure out where the chip's going to fall.
Yeah, I was talking with some barbers last week. Like, man, it's hitting us hard as well. Like, man, people don't even want to get haircuts right now.
Yeah.
Me, I can't never. I got a beard, so I'm not fortunate to be in that situation. But yeah, it's a real situation.
Yeah. I mean, especially people that rely on their investments for long-term savings, and if that thing is getting wiped down and cut down, it's gonna squeeze quite a different people's at very different levels.
We talked about Shark Tank earlier, but I was wondering if you had like any crazy business idea that you knew would be a hit, and it was turned down by investors, and it absolutely broke your heart.
I would say nah.
Okay.
We haven't done anything or made an attempt with anything that's been a complete flop or broken my heart, for that matter. I would say. I mean, I've probably got a laundry list of ideas that if I had, unlimited time and unlimited money, I would love to pursue all of them.
Yeah, definitely.
And they all sound good and exciting and fun, but none of them are easy, just because there's no such thing as easy business. So any one of them would require, somebody to be full-time dedicated to make it work.
You gave me this copy of your book when we were walking in, The Effortless Entrepreneur, Work Smart, Play Hard, Make Millions. You told me that it's currently on Amazon for purchase. Kind of talk to me about this. What went into this? What made you and Omar, decide to write the book?
Yeah, I think I was telling you, we probably wrote it a little prematurely. It was early on in our business journey that we wrote it, but we were at a business conference and one of the speakers said, anybody who's ever written a book always wishes they did it 10 years earlier. So you guys have a book inside of you, whatever it is, start writing it and get it out there. If you ink it, you own it. And that resonated with us, and we were like, okay, well, let's write what we wish we knew in high school and college that we've learned, after being in the fire for a couple of years as entrepreneurs, some of the hard knocks and hard lessons we've taken. I reread it recently. I would say 90% of it is universal and still relevant. I would probably go back and soften 10% of the language, because when we wrote it, we were in our 20s. I think 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss just came out, and we were trying to write it with a little bit of an edge so we could see if we could sell more copies and be the next 4 Hour Work Week. Of course, it didn't take off like that, but nevertheless, it's a timeless glimpse into our early days in business.
So y'all make sure y'all go on Amazon, grab your copy, go support somebody that's had a high level of success.
Yeah, and of course, it's kind of an oxymoron, right? Nothing's effortless about entrepreneurship, but we were trying to draw from the notion of, when you see an athlete or an artist just, performing on stage or performing on the field, it appears effortless, even though we know how much work went into them being able to get to that level. They're in the flow, and when they're in the flow, it just looks like it's completely natural to them. And we wanted to sort of bring that concept and mindset to entrepreneurship, as we know there's a ton of work behind the scenes that goes to getting a venture off the ground and to a level of success. But there's times when you're in that journey and in that process where it can appear effortless, especially to the outside observer. And that was sort of the idea behind that name.
Okay. Since going on Shark Tank, your business has generated over $1 billion in revenue. You have over 200 franchises. What you said, 3,000 employees?
Mm-hmm.
What is the feeling like for you? Because you talked about it. You get a sense of fulfillment out of seeing other people live their dreams, find success. What's it like for you knowing that you've been able to make an impact on people's lives and ultimately make a difference in this world?
I would say it's surreal. I would say it's humbling. I would say that it's kind of a never-ending quest and a never-ending journey. So we're not, ever going to sort of put our feet up on the table and say, okay, it's complete. We finished what we came here to do. We want to keep it going. And actually, I draw from an interview I saw with Nick Saban where they asked him, how do you keep getting motivated year in after winning 7 championships? And he said, the names on the jerseys may change, but the Alabama football culture remains the same. And complacency leads to bad decisions. Bad decisions lead to bad outcomes. And so for me, when we see the impact we make, I just try to remember to stay hungry, stay humble, and not get complacent about it. And, recently last summer, I got to visit one of our top performing franchise owners, and they bought what I would describe as like an estate in Long Island overlooking the water. They got these beautiful sunset views. They were able to do that in part because of, the platform that they're a part of with College Hunks. Now, they made it happen, but I want to help all of our franchise owners in the system reach their level of estate, whether that's actual physical property or just, personal, professional fulfillment, whatever that is to them, that level of success. That's what I want to help each person in our organization achieve. And then ultimately doing stuff like this, I think being able to share our story, share our message, we're also able to, impact and touch people beyond our brand that might be interested in getting into business or might be interested in, learning more about leadership. And I think that's, the opportunity that I, will be able to continue having.
Man, I appreciate you joining us today. It's absolutely been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to diving into this book. But, man, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Looking forward to checking it out as well. Congrats on everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Well, Freddie, how was your weekend?
Man, it was good. We had the community event last weekend, and it was a great turnout. So just want to say thank you to everybody that supported, everybody that donated behind the scenes to the foundation. Of course, we're going to continue to do events for the community throughout the year. So everybody that donates to the foundation, we appreciate you. But I just want to take the time out to thank our vendors that were there. The Freedom Tour, they came and they dropped off food for us to give to families in need. Shoes as well, and they're like some dope shoes, like boots, everything. Like people were taking shoes and like shoes you can actually style a little bit. The Freedom Tour. Shout out to Bobby Williams. He'll be running for governor, so appreciate him for dropping off some stuff on us. To Pola's Italian Nice, they had some great treats for the kids. Kitchen Sink of Soul had some soul food, some barbecue, some great food. Miss Wings and Things. The wings were delicious.
Just the videos of that food had my mouth watering.
Man, it was good. And Candace Marie B Code, she had some beads for the kids. My daughter got a Lilo and Stitch one, and she just went crazy. Like, it was dope. And of course the Mulberry Bucks, they came out, they had sign-ups, and they were a big part of what we did. And my father, he was a big part of the organization, and they came out and they showed some support. But I appreciate everybody that came out, and it was a great event. We're looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome. Just just keeping your father's legacy, intact, but in the community. It's a great cause. I'm excited for the next one. I'm hoping that the next one falls at a date that I'm not out of town. I would love to be there. Kind of shifting from that, you had a chance to watch your first NHL playoff game.
Yeah, man, I got to watch my first NHL playoff game. It was dope. Like, just watching it. I've always seen it on. We were talking about it behind the scenes. Alex Ovechkin, like on ESPN, just watching him kill the game for so many years.
Yep.
But this was the first time I actually got to sit down and watch. Well, 90% of a full game.
Yeah.
Because I ended up falling asleep at the end, thinking that the game was over. But now it has me to the point. I said I wanted to go to see a game.
Yeah.
But once you watch it live, like,
You got to.
man, that's because it was intense watching it live on TV.
In the building
So,
is
man,
even.
I want to go see it in person now, for real.
Dude, in the building, hockey's even better. It's one of those. And then, shout out Alex Ovechkin. He's the goals leader now.
Mm-hmm.
So, he this past season passed up Wayne Gretzky. So
Nice.
he's now the number one person to score goals in all time. No, the NHL playoffs have been insane as expected. That double overtime game, I also went to bed before it. I would usually stay up and watch it. I just couldn't get myself to. Panthers clawed back, and you could tell in Game 3 it mattered a lot. Oilers were tired. They end up winning. The Panthers end up winning 6-1. I think the next game is either today or tomorrow. Either Wednesday or Thursday. Next game is coming up soon. And it's gonna be good. It's still in Florida.
Okay.
So we'll see how it goes. NBA playoffs also kind of took a weird turn.
Yeah.
With the Oklahoma City Thunder right after we talked about it, dropping the first game to the Pacers. I don't know if you saw any of it, but it just seems like in that game the Thunder just came out flat and played the game the Pacers wanted.
Yeah, I just think the Pacers, in general, man, it's just a team where you can't let your foot off the gas with them. Because until that clock says 0, they feel like they're in it and they can win the game. Like, that Pacers team, they never die. And you got one of the coach I've loved for a while, Carlisle. Man, he's won championships in Dallas, and he has that team believing in themselves. So Thunder on paper should win, and they should win comfortably every game. But they give the Pacers any hope, it can get ugly.
Rick Carlisle slowly becoming one of the most revered coaches in the game. He's like you said, won that championship with the Mavericks, but before that was the coach that brought the championship Pistons up to that point. The year after he leaves, Larry Brown takes them to that point. In his reunion with the Pacers, because he had to stop there before. He's really taught. You can see too, they've improved every year. They've gotten better. They've fixed things. They've retooled 2 conference championships in a row, and now getting to the NBA championship. It's fun to watch. I just don't see them winning another game, though.
Yeah, we came into it. I thought it was going to be a gentleman's sweep, and then when they won a game, I was like, hold on, maybe this series may go longer than I thought. Yep. But then seeing that last game, I was like, I expect to see this for 3 more games. I don't think it's going to be close.
Yeah, I tip my hat to Mark Dagnall and Rick Carlisle. I think this is going to be one of those coaching matchups that is just out of this world. We're not going to see stuff like it again. But I think even if Rick Carlisle is the better coach, which he may not be, but he may be, Oklahoma City Thunder are too deep.
Yeah, way too deep.
They've got 2 amazing defending guards in Dort and Edwards. It's just, I think it's going to be 2. And Caruso, 3 amazing defending guards. And then you got Shea, who, the most unproblematic superstar of his generation.
Yeah.
He's just, he wants to be in the spotlight, but he wants to also bring his guys with him. Jalen Williams is playing amazing. He's an amazing Pippen for this. It's just Chet Holmgren. He had a terrible first game. It kind of felt like they figured him out, but then they started playing him with Hartenstein, using him with Hartenstein, kind of playing them off of each other. So it's like they're just in a good spot. I think they're so deep, and they've got so many draft picks. That's the thing that's the most insane part, is like realistically they could win this championship and then just like completely retool.
Yeah.
They could trade all their picks for whoever.
That's what we were looking at last week, man, just looking at all the draft picks that they acquired, man. It's scary, but at the same time, you just never know how each season plays out. Like, because I came into this season, man, go back to your Celtics. After they won the ring last year, I was like, man, I could see the Celtics ripping off the next 4 or 5 championships. And then, they're not healthy in the playoffs this year. So, you just never know.
I mean, you think about dynasties, and this is way too soon to be talking about Oklahoma City Thunder as a dynasty because there is so much luck involved. But you look at like Michael Jordan's 2 3-peats, 6 championships total in the 90s. Everybody was relatively healthy. You got Michael playing through some injuries every once in a while. You got Scotty playing through some injuries every once in a while. But overall, like, they weren't debilitated by injuries. Their bench stayed fairly healthy. They kept retooling. When Horace Grant left, they brought Dennis Rodman in. Like they kept changing and morphing. And I think that's the scariest, not in a bad way, but the scariest part about the Oklahoma City Thunder is that they have the opportunity to retool for the next decade. Yeah. Like realistically, if Shea decides that he wants to be a diva at some point and leave, they could retool. They could send him somewhere and they could bring someone else in. And then if for some reason like Shea's the only one that doesn't want to leave, he becomes like a Giannis or a Damian Lillard. Well, Giannis may want to leave this year, but he becomes like a Damian Lillard, and Damian did leave, but you know what I mean. Like a stalwart who's willing to play for a bad team but wants to play for a good team. You could just use those picks. Yeah. You could realistically just rebuild around Shea. I mean, their salary cap's not insane. It's going to get to the point where it gets a little scary, but it's not like a Nuggets window where it's like it's going to close very quick. Yeah, fast. And it's definitely, and I mean, like if Shea gets hurt, like Tatum got hurt, then you might be seeing a Celtics situation. But even then, like Shea didn't play a couple. Like when Shea doesn't play, they still win and beat teams. So deep. It's
a deep team, man. You got so many guys that's what's unique about the run that they're making. Man, you got guys that, like when Shea struggled last series in the game, you have other guys step up. Williams steps up. He has a huge game. And then you have Chet Holmgren. Like, I think that's what makes them a dangerous team this year, the emergence of Chet Holmgren. Oh, yeah. He's a beast of length. He's hard to defend. And now you just see him playing with confidence, and that's just a big part of it. Now that he's playing with confidence, the Thunder are going to be hard to beat for a while he's healthy.
100%. And you bring a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein in there to just help switch things up and change just the way that the whole team vibes. It's honestly just a wonder. I think the only thing that the Pacers really have going for them is the fact that a member of the Pacers has won the championship in the last 7 years, or the Wizards, have won the championship in the last 7 years, and they've got 2 Wizards players. So that's like, but like that stuff isn't real. Like this could easily be the year that it gets broken. It'd be an anomaly if they won. It'd be cool if they won, but it'd be an anomaly.
I'm hoping they win only because they got Tony Bradley over there, but it's like, man, my brother, man, God bless you, man.
Oh yeah, they've got a team full of guys that everybody, like Tony Bradley specifically, but like even like all their whole bench is built with people that, like, if you're an NBA fan, you like or have heard of in a capacity that is positive, like TJ McConnell, all these dudes. I mean, their whole team is built like with guys that are like, if you have a 2K franchise, you trade for him to be your sixth man or a star, know. So it's Miles Turner's a great guy. And speaking about the Pacers and like playoff windows, like this may be a situation where the Pacers are in a playoff window because Miles Turner is a free agent next year. Like half their team is free agents. They've got a good deal in Pascal Siakam. Like they had to pay him, but like he's not overly expensive. Same with Halliburton. Like he'll probably be more expensive next time. But you got Mathurin, you got all those dudes that are going to be vying for a contract soon. Like this might be the tail end of their window.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't see them being there up there too long. Even if they're able to keep some of the top guys, I think they're a team that their pace helps them, overcome a lot of the areas where they're weak. Yeah. And it gives a lot of teams issues. That's what the Cavs struggle with, dealing with the Pacers, their pace. But I just don't think the Pacers right now are going to be a team that's going to be able to sustain this for multiple years. No, not me either. Kind of sticking in the NBA, have you heard the Kevin Durant rumors? No, I haven't. What?
So the Suns, there's no secret the Suns were bad this year and they want to trade him. He's older. He's expensive. I think he's on the last year of his deal. So they openly are shopping him. They announced this week that they're going to try and get him to a team. And he, through his agent, announced that he would like to go to the Spurs.
Hey, stop.
So that would be cool.
KD and Wemby?
KD, Wemby. I mean, if they can keep De'Aaron Fox and Vassell and all these. I mean, like, realistically, you've got a expensive, aging, not struggling, but like struggling team-wise star. Like, you don't have to give to. I mean, and like the Spurs have like the second pick, third pick.
I would like to see that, man.
They have like the second pick and like the ninth pick. So like they could trade like the ninth pick and another pick for KD and like just keep it rolling.
Yeah, I think I would love to see that. Just Kevin Durant would be great for Wemby's development. Man, just being what I believe is one of the top skilled big guys we've ever seen in this league. And Wemby being around him, just being a freak of nature, seeing Kevin Durant work and, adding some of the tools from his game over to his, translating it over, man, I think that would be huge for his development.
I think it'd be insane. I mean, KD's the prototypical ring chaser, so this would be the perfect. Love KD, but it's the truth. No, I mean he's a great player. He's one of the greatest players of all time. It'd be amazing. It literally would be like putting LeBron on. Yeah. Like different skill set, but it'd be like putting LeBron or Steph Curry on.
I want to see. I don't know. It'll probably never happen, but I want to see LeBron and Curry get together before they wrap it up. But it's not gonna happen, man.
Yeah,
I would love to see that, man.
That'd be cool. I keep hearing rumors that this is gonna be LeBron's farewell tour this next season, which is sad, but he is in his 40s now. Yeah, so it's like, but also I think that would be awesome because like that would be so fun just having Bron and Curry, just two old dudes vibing, hanging out.
I think you'll get an extra year or two out of LeBron if that was the case.
Oh yeah,
especially it'd be so fun playing with Curry.
Especially if they brought in a young talent, like if it was, I mean, like what Bron would probably want is like if Curry would move to LA, like I mean, these are not even close to rumors, but like. Imagine Curry, Luka, and LeBron on a team. People would quit. That's like a my team that people load into and they just quit. But no, NBA playoffs have been insane. NBA trade rumors are insane. We'll still see. We're waiting to see what's going on with Giannis. He hasn't officially asked out yet, but he's definitely explored it. Okay. Or at least that's the rumor. There's not a lot of landing spots for him, specifically cap wise, but also trade asset wise, because the Milwaukee Bucks don't have their own picks. So it's like if they're trading him away, Dame's hurt, they're going to be bad next year. They need their pick.
Yeah.
Which like you could do like a 3-team trade, but then you get apron stuff involved. So we'll see how that works out. We'll see if he just sticks it out and plays his career there, or if he, leaves in another deal. I keep seeing people want him to be traded for Cat and go to the Knicks, which would be interesting. I just don't. I can't see the Bucks unless Giannis asks for it explicitly going to an Eastern Conference team. That just doesn't sound like very realistic to me. In other sports news, we've got an insane combat sports weekend.
Yeah.
We were kind of talking about it before hopping on the pod. The first thing that you're going to see is Glory Kickboxing. It's the number one kickboxing, organization in the world. Alex Pereira, who I don't know if you know who that is.
Pereira, yeah.
Alex Pereira, the Peloton 2 division champion. In Glory. No.
Oh, okay.
No. He's still in the UFC.
Yeah, okay.
That would be insane. He might be there because he is such a big part of the history. But he's a 2 division champion in Glory Kickboxing when he was in the organization. Same with Izzy Adesanya. I don't know if he was a 2 division, but he was a champion in Glory Kickboxing. And then you've got, like, for the main event, it's 20 fights, but for the main event, you got Rico Verhoeven versus Artem Vakitov, who Rico Verhoeven, probably the GOAT heavyweight kickboxer. I mean, he's beaten so many big names. And then Artem Vakitov famously knocked a dude out first round in Dana White's Contender Series and had a UFC contract offered to him and declined it because it was not enough money. Because he's making a bunch of money in kickboxing. Mm-hmm. He's like, why would I jump ship?
Yeah,
so
I feel that, man.
You could see him. I mean, that's going to be interesting. I know Rico's a huge favorite. I think Vakitov has a chance to upset, but it's just because kickboxing is unpredictable. So another combat sports thing this weekend is Usman versus Buckley in Atlanta, Georgia. UFC.
Who you got winning now?
I mean, my gut says Usman, but Usman's like 38.
Yeah.
He's on a 3-fight skid, but they're all understandable. Like, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. He had only lost 1 fight until that, and he lost to Leon Edwards because he got knocked out last second. I don't know if you've ever seen that video.
Yeah, I saw Leon Edwards fight.
That was nuts. And then he lost to him in a decision, but he was fighting in England, and then he took a short notice fight against the guy who's fighting for the middleweight title now.
Okay.
So he like took a short notice upweight fight and hadn't built his body for it. So he hasn't fought in like a year and a half. And then he's getting this contender, Joaquin Buckley, who I don't know if you've ever seen his knockout, his spinning kick knockout. It's legitimately one of the best knockouts of all time. But he is on a big winning streak as well in the welterweight division. He used to fight at middleweight, but now he went down to welterweight. He just beat Colby Covington.
Okay.
In Tampa. I
remember seeing that. Okay.
Which was, people say it was controversial, and I don't think it was very controversial. He was beating the crap out of him.
Yeah, Buckley's the guy that has a lot of the viral social media clips.
Yes. Yeah, Buckley's insanely viral on social media. I'll see if I can get this. Oh, goodness. Why is it so... It's a short, but it's the one where he throws a kick, guy catches it, and then he
kicks, spins around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw this.
It's very, very, very cool. I don't know why they're cutting to.
Some dope angles they got.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
I've ever seen
knocks them out. That was like what made Buckley insanely famous. And then since then he's actually gone on a really big streak. Like he's beating contenders. I worry this is a situation where, he just starches Usman. Yeah. And then Usman just retires. I love Usman. He's one of my favorite champions. Beat Tyron Woodley when nobody thought it was possible. And then pretty much had the same career as Tyron Woodley, where he just laid on people until he like knocked out Jorge Masvidal that one time. I don't know if you saw that one. That was another highlight knockout where you see all of the sweat coming off of him. In the same realm of that combat sports, dirty boxing.
Yep.
You had never heard of this before, but it's Mike Perry's Platinum Mike Perry, UFC vet, BKFC. I think he's still in the BKFC, but he hasn't fought in a while. But he's got a promotion called Dirty Boxing where I think it's like 6-ounce gloves, fists, elbows, ground and pound.
That's on my type of party, man.
Yeah. So it's just like a street fight.
Yeah.
Except no grappling, no kicks. So the first event was fairly entertaining. Yoel Romero knocked out
I'm gonna check it out.
some people. This one's it's a little bit more niche as far as like the people who are in it, but there are some big names. Some names that if you paid attention to other promotions or if you watched like the deep cards of the UFC, you've noticed them. And then Hitchens versus Kambosos, Battle for New York.
Man,
People are dubbing it.
They've been going back and forth online for a while.
Yeah. Well, and Hitchens is one of those dudes that, you know, he's on the fringe.
Yeah.
You know,
Stardom.
You know, yeah. And the Kambosos is hasn't really been the same since those losses, like to what's his name?
Haney.
To Haney, yeah. So it's like we'll see what happens, how it turns out, what's going on. But there's a chance that Hitchens can get it done and snatch that King of New York title.
Yeah. And
be that dude for New York. I mean, like right now, who's got it? Gervonta Davis.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
I guess maybe Serrano, Amanda Serrano. Because she's a beast. She's the one. She's like the one who fought on the same card as Jake Paul and all them.
Okay. She's from New York.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Even though Tank does well in New York, I don't know if he would want that title with being from Baltimore.
Yeah.
But New York's where he does it big in the Barclays Center, man. Yeah.
Yeah. He probably doesn't want that title. I think that's the thing about the King of New York is that New Yorkers haven't really had it in a while.
Yeah.
So it's like.
But New York's like a second home for Tank for sure. So
yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited about the Hitchens fight. Excited. Really haven't watched the Kambosos fight since he lost to Haney. Haney just made him look so easy in the ring, man. It just made me lose interest. So yeah. I'm interested in seeing how he looks this fight. Yeah,
I think the most interesting thing about Kambosos is just his quality of opponent. Like he's been fighting good guys, but they haven't really given him a challenge.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is all boxing. You know, it's not very often where, you know, fighters take a chance until recently. You know, they would a lot of times they would much rather just like make money and
keep that O and
keep that O or keep that low number. It's very interesting. I mean, like Kambosos too, like coming from Australia and fighting in New York against a New York opponent, having the belts. You gotta at least cheer him for that. It should be a good fight. It should be a much better fight than like the most recent fights we've had, where it's just been like two guys that have an opponent that they want afterwards, and they don't get it.
Speaking of boxing, man, we were just talking about how we were looking forward to the Keyshawn Davis fight last week. Then he doesn't make weight. The fight gets canceled.
Yeah, Keyshawn, man. I really, really, really enjoy watching Keyshawn Davis fight. I was very sad. I probably wouldn't have been able to watch too much of it. I was at that wedding last week. But he's such a good fighter that I would have tried to tune in. You know? But then you got the problem where, you know, most people were clowning his opponent for not taking it. But in the reality, you know, he weighed like 5 to 9 pounds. I can't even remember. Overweight. It looked like he didn't even try to cut.
Yeah, and that's what. And then the stories were coming out after he missed weight. Like people were saying he knew he wasn't gonna miss weight when the fight was. He wasn't gonna make weight when the fight was announced. So then it's like okay. Yeah. And then De Los Santos, his team was like, man, no, we don't want a repeat of the Ryan Garcia situation because we really don't think this guy tried to make weight. And it sucks because Keyshawn is in his hometown for this event. I know he wanted to show out.
Yep.
And then I think his brother ended up losing. So
I'm not sure.
So-
Didn't he have both? Doesn't he have two brothers that were on the card? And I think one won.
and then the other one,
lost.
another one lost. But then there's like a brawl after
was gonna
the
say,
yeah,
there's
there's a
all
brawl, and so I don't know how much he helped himself going forward. I think he hurt himself a lot last weekend, man.
Yeah.
You know, professionally, it just was a bad look for him. I do think at this point, you know, boxers, they get to points where they outgrow that weight, you know, so it's understandable, but you didn't get to fight. And then you know, have all the other stuff off outside of the ring that looks bad on you. So I don't know. I love seeing him in the ring, man, but I think he hurt himself last weekend.
No, 100%. You hear fighters needing tune-up fights after long layoffs. He almost needs a tune-up fight for his PR.
Yeah.
You know, they've lost a little faith in him. I mean, I feel like this reminds me, not wholeheartedly, but it reminds me a lot of like that Tyson Fury and Ngannou fight, where it's like Fury went into that fight being one of the best fighters of all time, and people really, really loved tuning in to watch his fights, but then you watch him like get knocked down by an MMA fighter, and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then like they still sold a bunch of pay-per-views for the Usyk Fury fight, and he technically did win the Ngannou fight, but then you see AJ knock out Ngannou in like a round and a half, and you're like, what is going on?
It's all over the place.
It's the same thing with like Keyshawn, where it's like your whole job is to make weight and fight, and then when you have millions of dollars, it's hard to want to push through that. But I would almost argue that Keyshawn is not even 100% at that point where he's got.
Yeah, no, he's not a.
Like he's a big name for people who watch boxing.
Yeah, but he has had a huge payday yet.
No, he's not a Canelo. He's not a Floyd. He's not even a Tank or a Haney. He's not a Haney. You know, he's a very good fighter that
can be on that level.
But he needs to push through the barriers. And at this point, it seems like the barriers are all his own. So hopefully he gets another fight. He makes weight. I'd be cool that if they rescheduled this fight and tried to like negotiate like a hydration clause or something like that. But overall, you know, I was just disappointed. Opataya won. We were talking about him. Mm-hmm. He knocked the dude out real quick. Brandon Moore won.
Yeah, Brandon Moore dropped the guy. And Brandon Moore's been online since that fight, calling out Jared Big Baby Anderson. Mm-hmm. They're going back and forth on social media, talking about they'll knock each other out. So, hey, maybe we get that fight down the line.
That'd be spectacular. I'm all for as much heavyweight boxing action as possible. It's always been super fun, but also we've had so many good ones. That Wardley versus Huni fight that we talked about a while ago was a really good fight. People thought that Huni was robbed a little bit because he was quote unquote quick counted. I didn't think it was super quick, but the heavyweight division is ripe with opportunity, and especially when you got a guy like Brandon, who, you know, he doesn't have an O anymore. He's got nothing but, you know, straight road ahead of him just to like knock people out, win some decisions, get to a title, one of the major titles, and he's a few steps away from it. You look at Martin Bacoli's like career; he lost, and then he like swung straight into it.
Yeah,
you know, so it's like he's got the opportunity, he's got the physical ability, and he's still young for boxing.
And that's what I looked at just watching his first few fights. When Brandon Moore was with Top Rank, there was still a lot of fine tuning that needed to take place in the ring. You just saw, you know, a lot of it was nerves being on the big stage, and then there's some things that he was sloppy in a few areas. But then this was the first fight I went into, and I was like, yo, he looks a lot sharper tonight. Yeah, he's on point. So whatever changes that he made after that first loss, you see it showing. And, you know, a fight with a guy like Big Baby would be huge. I think they both, you know, Brandon's length will give Big Baby some problems, and, you know, Big Baby, he's a guy that's on the rise in the heavyweight division. So I would love to see that fight happen.
The real Big Baby, as it's noted on his box rec.
Have you been hearing about Shamar Stewart, Bengal situations?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that. Yeah, it's insane. I need to do more research on it because I've just seen the clippings of his interviews and stuff. I don't know what's going on, but it seems like he's getting screwed.
Yeah, he wants the same exact language that, you know, from the guys that were drafted in his spot years prior, and that's not what he's getting. And I'm with him, man. Like, because Everything could go. He can play one snap and then never play another snap again. So you want to be protected. You want to make like that's. I'm all for the players. So I understand him fighting for it. And it's the Bengals situation is just weird in general to me because you don't pay Trey Hendrickson. He deserves to get paid. And then now you're having issues with the guy that you drafted. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, I don't get what their whole plan is over there. It's like sounds like they're just being cheap, and they don't understand like taking care of their guys. Like we talked about the Pacers window.
Yeah,
the Bengals y'all window is really slipping. like y'all got probably 1 or 2 more years before
they
it's
just released Jermaine Pratt, the linebacker, too. Like they're like, I don't know what they're doing. They're in a weird spot because they paid 2 receivers. Like that's the weird thing is like they gave Higgins some money, they gave Jamar some money. I completely agree though. Jamar should be getting paid. He's drafted high because he's a good player.
Good player, man. He's a good player. Hey.
He's a great player, and he needs to. I don't know. The Bengals have been kind of proving that they're. Not to say that they're a bad organization, but they've not proven like they're very player oriented.
Yeah, no, not at all.
And they need to figure it out because organizations like that are the organizations that end up losing their star quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was more understandable than Matt Stafford, but you know you got all these players. Like I mean, even like you can say like the Commanders with Kirk Cousins, and then the Vikings with Kirk Cousins, and now Kirk Cousins got hurt, but still, like there's all of these recent examples of like, hey, if you don't fix the things around the quarterback, even the defense, the quarterback's just gonna leave. Tom Brady, I'll say that. You know, he left because we weren't doing anything. Like we didn't get him receivers, we didn't get him any help, we didn't pay the guys on the other side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that's it all. You know, if you have a bad foundation, it leads to like you losing all of the good stuff that you have.
I'm still stuck on that because I believe if the Bengals did their part and got Burrow a better line that year they went to the Super Bowl, he's a Super Bowl champion. Because you look at that last play, Chase is wide open. But he doesn't have time to get him the ball in that Super Bowl against the Rams. He's wide open, like naked down the field.
Yep.
And Burrow can't get him the ball. Of course, you know, you're dealing with Aaron Donald, but the Bengals O-line was terrible that year.
Yeah. No, the Bengals O-line was awful. The fact that they made it to that deep was just honestly just pure luck and skill. And then you see the following year where they try to retool their offensive line, but they make all the wrong moves. That's just GM.
Yeah.
You know, I think their coach is decent. I think that Burrow and Chase and Higgins are a spectacular core. They probably shouldn't have let Mixon go.
Yeah, nah.
But they've got good pieces.
Yeah, I like the back now. Brown, he's a good back. So
yeah.
He can make it work for him. But I just think it goes back to what you said, man. They were so explosive offensively, but in those playoff games, you got to be able to make a stop.
Yeah.
And that's what Kansas City, they're the standard, man.
Yeah.
So
well, they just keep retooling.
Man, I don't think you got the pieces to stop a Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs right now.
No. There's not many teams that have that, especially in the AFC. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully that gets cleared up soon. I just saw that the Patriots fully guaranteed Will Campbell, which I'm happy about. If you draft a dude in the first round, you might as well just give him first round money. I did have an idea for one segment. Now that we're in the swing of pretty much no football, I believe the UFL is still going on, but you know, I don't pay as much attention to that as I used to. I wanted to give a shout out to a football guy, just a random football guy that I have in my head. I thought of it driving over here, and it was specifically because of this dude. I want to give a shout out to Doug Martin.
Yeah, Doug Martin.
You know, the original muscle hamster out of Boise State, Tampa Bay legend.
Yep.
He was a dog. He was part of some of those most insane teams. I mean, he had 2 1,400-yard seasons. That's crazy. His last season, he only started in 9 games and he had 723 yards. He was a dog. He was in that prime era where running backs were just, you know, used and abused and thrown to the curb. And I think that he's one of those dudes that needs to be thought about more.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, he was Martin was a dog, man. He was a dog. Not even just what was his name that played with the Panthers a few with Cam Newton? He went to Oregon, running back.
Jonathan Stewart.
Jonathan Stewart.
Yeah,
I like Jonathan Stewart.
Yep,
Man.
that's another one. Jonathan Stewart, shout out. He was one of the. This is just the prime of like when I was playing Madden. I would trade for Jonathan Stewart, or I'd trade for Doug Martin, or I'd play with their teams, and I would just run the rock.
Jonathan Stewart, you had that backfield. Jonathan Stewart, and then Mike Tolbert, who was kind of your fullback tweener, like could play a little running back. That was a great time of NFL football, man.
Yep. Well, shout out to Jonathan Stewart and Doug Martin. But most of all, shout out to you all. Love to thank our sponsors, Garnet and Gold, Craig Burt Realty Group, Indie Atlantic Films, and Concord Coffee. Thank you for tuning in. We're excited to give you some more episodes.